and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this special video edition with me here today, where I will be talking about a very important topic, okay, especially in regards to our ascension and physical changes that are happening in our bodies in regards to this ascension journey. So as you know me, I have my life force mastery path, and it's still ahead of me, a lot of it, what I have to learn and master. And because of these intense changes that I personally have been going through, and I'm still going through, and they have led me in a way to the precipice of feeling like really, what this is all about. Please show me the deeper meaning behind all this. And although the title is Ascension Symptoms, I'm going to relate this especially to a topic of one particular symptom of ascension, which can be possible for people on this journey, which is called hair loss, okay? Why specifically I want to talk about this? Because it was my personal experience, because I have been observing my cycles and relating them to these changes, and because of the way that when you get to this point in life, and you understand things that you do about this journey and of yourself, and your constant communication with your team of light, and you can get answers in no particular way or means and form in any way related to 3D concepts. People will always talk about you're lacking certain minerals, vitamins, nutritions, whatnot, or it's because you're vegan, blah, blah. I've been vegan for many years, like many years, and it's has nothing to do with my hair loss, because my nutrition was basically always the same, if not, always increasingly better and better and more refined as I grew in my light quotient. The thing is, today strongly my family of light has told me to search in the internet. I don't know how to basically never do that, okay? But they said to really type in the words ascension and hair loss. And I came across this amazing article, which you can read yourself. I'm going to read you parts of it. It's from a woman light worker, and what's her name? Let me get to the bottom of the list. Denise LaFay. And this was written in 2010. And you can get this article easily. Just type in ascension symptom hair loss. It will be one of the first Google searches. It's a WordPress page, and it talks about the transition journey. So I'm going to tell you, before I read a little bit about that, my own experience with this, because when I was asking myself this question, and I had two specific periods of hair loss. One was just about when it was my awakening time. This was around 2010, sometimes, I think, around that point. I had like really super long hair. All of a sudden, they all fell out, and I was worried. I even went to a doctor, to a dermatologist, and they said, well, we don't see any problems, right? There's nothing wrong. And I remember in that specific cycle, it wasn't yet that intense. Now, a lot of people who do prophecy work, they have prophesized as in streaming of light to 2017 will be very intense new cycle. And it was actually a cycle that coincided with major cosmic rays influence. Okay, but I want to explain what this is about in terms of why the changes in their body are happening, because they're not like a direct consequence of the energies coming in on their own, but they're a direct response of our vital life force energy going in, the energy work that's required of us, those of us who have taken this vow to do this work, to do planetary service work, which can often get like really intense. So first things first, as you know, everything in your life, all the functions in your body are being sustained primarily through life force energy, which means that there's a vital life force that runs through our bodies that sustains all the functions of the organs, metabolic processes, even cellular metabolic processes, all of that. And when our life force energy sustenance that primarily feeds our body is in any way changed or altered, which is a part of the ascension process, those of us who are volunteer souls, we will give most of our life force to build this template for ascension, not just for ourselves, for others on the planet itself. That's why I love this article, because it doesn't just, quote like these new agey pages like these can be ascension symptoms. Do you subscribe under these? A lot of times they're not ascension symptoms. It's like things that people experience. But this article goes really deep. It goes deep into the experience of the energetic shifts and why this happens. Okay, so when my second shift came with the hair, which was around the end of 2016, okay, with the hair falling out, and it was a 2017, and it doesn't happen to everyone. It happens usually to the best of us because we do most work within our bodies. We do most alchemical alteration within our bodies. This is how we process. So this means that our body is sustaining a high level of life force that's being created as an offering to build this new template. So for a time being that we're doing this and this process, and of course, when we're just beginning, we're not yet masters of this process completely, and we're always mastering it. It's all a process, and it's a project of light that we don't always know in which direction it will go. But what this means is that in our body, because so much energy has been put into this ascension symptom, and in this article, there's literally a quote that this woman shares. Okay, I have to read you this. It's amazing. It's by someone else, and she referenced this, and you can read that when you search for that. It's, I was told by a star being once that Ascension uses up to 70% of our vital life force at times, explains that. All the couch surfing for a decade. So it's when people feel lethargic in the bodies, they don't have enough life force, energy in terms of, movement, because they use so much of that for the process. This is actually the same guidance I received. And when I read that, I started crying because I knew it to be true. But here at the end of the journey, when it's like, the breakthrough of being uplifted, it feels more like it's 94% because we just have absolutely nothing left to give. So the woman then wrote, I know this is true because I've gone through many years where my physical body didn't have enough energy, enough life force to even digest food. I often experience this. When I do intense energy work, my digestion will just stop because my body's so tired. It's like, the vital organs say, it's like there's not enough to sustain us, okay? So she wrote, as a forerunner, all my vital life force was going into the seemingly endless ascension process, transmuting of both personal and collective, earthly and other dimensional lower frequency density, darkness, duality, issues, and residual negative emotional energies on earth throughout time. There was little to no energy left for such things as digesting food or maintaining a head full of healthy hair. Yeah, hair is such a thing, even she wrote about this in the article, that when she was going through these changes, she couldn't believe how much our identity of the self is related to, us having a scalp rich with hair, okay? So when you look at me now, it might seem like, oh, I have enough hair, okay? This is just after my washing. It looks like a little fluffy because I blow dry it a bit. But after 2 days and like sporty activities, when it gets a little greasy and it's like it sticks together, I have like a feeling I have holes in my head. It's still very intense, this process. And when I wash my hair, it's like a whole fist of hair goes out. And it can be scary at times, okay? But what they have been showing me today in meditation is that usually it's not the same for everyone. I'm talking about it from my reference point, and as a creation pillar, my work in this planet can get really intense. And of course, only I know this because I know myself better than anyone. And they have been sharing with me that a part of building this new body, this means that I've shared with you before that the first process is to create the Ascension platform. It depends of your soul what you are actually creating this platform for, whether you're just doing it for yourself. As the souls go through the ascension, that's why their changes maybe will not be that drastic, and they're probably going to have other symptoms first. Souls who are then maintaining or assisting a larger group of people, let's say there's a soul connections through soul group, they're helping to assist. And there's a third scenario where the major of the life force energy you've channeled, and this is in my case, is at the planetary level, which means imagine how much energy has to go to this process. And like the woman wrote, it's probably not a lot then to sustain my scalp, right? To have these rich and luscious hair. So usually when you share these things with people, they will all find, they're going to try to find or give you advice on the 3D level of material reality, which is, oh, you're probably lacking nourishment and vitamins and minerals and this and that, educate yourself on this. I have been educating myself on veganism for so many years, and I like the way I sustain myself is so rich with diversity. I'm not like one of those vegans that eats like just, fruits and veggies and that's it. And I've always had that sustenance and always had this approach. I'm a Virgo after all. We know wellness, we know well-being, we were good with that. The issue is that when these new cosmic waves of energy started increasing on the planet, and those of us who have a particular role with, we're guiding these cosmic rays to have a focused purpose here, that they're not just like pieces of scattered energy just going about anywhere. So this is what the creation pillar does. It harnesses energy through life force mastery so that you can synthesize the energy. You're drawing it, you're pulling it through your body, and that's where your body has to be at a very high capacity of strength. So in my meditation today, my team of light have shared with me, they said you have to, you're working now on developing your body to be at this maximum strength of total resilience, instead of this resistance, right? That the lower, weaker bodies of weaker density can experience, which means you're always resisting the conditions that are, which means if you're resisting something, you're going to be very susceptible to these viruses and things like that. But they said it's not just that. It's also, when people gossip or they sending you a negative energy, whatever kind of material things, that are going on in your life, it all creates a certain form of stress. So when you do intense life force mastery channeling work at the planetary level, as I do, or even just for your personal ascension, doesn't matter. It's still harnessing life for energy for vital processes that are not just maintaining your own body functions. It goes beyond that. You're actually maintaining the bodily functions of the planet. Can you imagine this in a new way? So as your body is adapting to this and it's learning to stabilize this light quotient, because you once function at this level, now you're moving up to this level. This might be the most intense period in your life. And for me, this second hair loss wave was much more intense than the first one, because the first one at least didn't leave me with holes in my head, in the back and the scalp. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, if this continues, like this woman, she's like, I was laughing at the end, with compassion, because I know how this feels. She was saying, what did she say? Bald eagle. Made me think of the bald eagle. Sorry, guys. She said that there are new phase 2 ascension symptoms we're having to deal with now, but that was way back. But still, it's all happening in cycles, depending where you are in your journey. This was the older generation, okay? I'm assuming by the age of the woman. But there's nothing as intense and shadowing as the majority of phase 1 ascension symptoms that they were. I do have hope that once I reach the great cutoff date of winter solstice 2012, I won't do so as a 60-year-old overweight and half bald earth angel. That's why I thought of a bald eagle, which is actually cool. So in my guided meditation today, they were telling me that specifically my process was very important to build this strong new body, which is a lifelong process. And we on Earth were like, oh, why does it take so long? I've been going through this for 2 years and there was no major increase. Starting to get my hopes up, the hair started growing a bit, and then they fall out again. I'm like, what the heck? Because it's not just the old long hair that actually fall out. It's like the little ones as well, which are basically not as old, because as you know, the rule goes, the hair has a survival rate of around 7 years, and then it kind of weakens the root and falls out when its due date comes. And then you're asking yourself, well, one thing, some people have long hair, right? They can just sustain this long hair, and some people don't, okay? This is not about this, but this is about just having that sustenance within ourselves to keep this going. And this is not the same the way she talks about it. It's energetic in relation, because she first thought, okay, maybe it's astrology, but then she went deeper, and probably as one of the Ascension forerunners, I don't know the woman, but considering what I read from the article, she said it's something that she had to go much deeper within, and I had to do the same. Because when you try to look at it from the angles of density, that's just the physical reality, you won't understand, and you have to go much deeper, and you have to communicate with your higher self. And I do it with my light council, and they kind of tell me things, but I have to also know that I am very much a participant in this journey, which means that they said I've challenged so much energy in this last years that it's even amazing I still have here, because all my vital life force energy went into the planetary life force quotient building and this process and assisting others. And actually there was periods in my life when I didn't even dedicate to myself. I was just like all around, and this probably left my body very stressed. So the bodily functions couldn't always maintain themselves. And that's why I will experience periods of, rapid digestion and everything flowing, and then periods when my body is so exhausted from what I'm meant to harness that I can't even digest food, and I eat the same as always. So it's not like you introduce something different to your body and then you see the change. It's a totally different reason. So the thing is that when you look at it, you understand that there's only one thing left to do. First of all, have the understanding of what's happening. Second, understand that this is so much life force connected that when you do things at a broader scope means you will kind of have to go into this balance mode. Okay, I'm still human though. Okay, I might do this work. And they shared in meditation today, they said, for you to build a strong body, at the same time maintain the appearance of being a human, that was very difficult, they said, because they showed like an image of a woman turning into a werewolf and how difficult that changes. And basically physicality changes so drastically. This was not as drastic because the project behind it, right, the light project, was to maintain the human physicality, which means that, okay, I'm a human, I would like to just have hair, I don't want to be a bald eagle, although I love eagles, right? And even bald eagles are not actually bald, that's the funny thing. They have so much feather, okay? So the issue here is that we have to find this balance, okay? So those of you maybe who are just starting to do life force master work, don't worry, okay? Don't do things out of fear. Oh, what if this happens to me when I start doing deeper things? No, the important thing is balance. Not everyone will have as an advanced and intense mission that I do. And I tell you from the get-go, you know, I didn't probably know before coming here how horrible sometimes it might feel in terms of the physical changes that the human aspect of us would say, whoa, I don't want to go that deep. So if you look years back, I had these long hair, even in my videos. It's like, oh, what happened to her all of a sudden? What did she do? She's malnourished. Is it problems? Is she stressed out? Not stressed out in the traditional kind of way, you know, that people would consider stress, you know, the physical things that just add up to you. And this is, like I said, these cosmic waves are increasingly streaming in. And as much as this woman wrote, yeah, this was the most intense wave, yeah, well, it depends, right? Which generation, what's your assignment, what you took on. For me, these last 2 years were the most challenging and difficult in terms of how much energy work I had to do, how much life force went into this. And this left me at times so depleted. You know, I couldn't do much. I told you before in one video, I used to be like a bad runner. I mean, badass. Now I just like do sometimes, you know, and I can already feel that because so much energy goes into the vital sustenance of this, what I do in terms of life force, energy quotient building up. It's like I can no longer have that same input into, you know, just maintaining my personal life, like going for a run, going for a hike, this and that. So my body has been changing. You know, I couldn't produce so much in terms of, you know, it was a sudden change, you know, even with my wrinkles, it's like, wow, all of a sudden they started coming. What is this? Before, nothing for so many years. And now it's like, I know I'm on the sun like a lot more than most people. But still, you know, I do this, I do cringe when I'm out in the sun. I'm always outside. But it's different. It's almost like the body, it's like it doesn't handle the things the same way because the vital life functions are operating differently now because you're here. We have been invested so much, those of us who are here as volunteer souls, in this process. So it's like it was difficult for us to maintain these like, let's say, our humanly functions. And that's why important for us to get grounded now, to get really down into the root, to anchor, to do life force mastery, to do that tantric breath, tantric activation, sacred orgasm. All this is in my courses. And this all helps us to stay balanced because I'm going to read you what this woman wrote here. How this relates to, you know, when you are working at the shadow levels, you're kind of pulling aspects up. And when you pull these aspects of you up, which means there is a quotient of, what's it called? The differential quotient, I don't know. But let's say your light body has developed to this degree. Now you have to pull up your physical body at that level, okay? Which means that there's a high differentiation rate. And this means that the body sort of experiences this as a little struggle. It doesn't know which reality it has a firm grip, okay? So in that process, the body's confused, right? You grow hair, same time they're falling out. The body's like in this wobbly state. And this channel message for this month, Spirit does talk about this wobbly reality, which is basically because of this notion of the ascension that you pull you build that template at the higher level, but you still need to pull the body then, you know. So when you pull the body up, and I'm going to read you from this article, this example, is everything that's still left in this lower density. And you know, hair is memory. Hair is like everything in your hair, the nails, it's all these aspects that contain memory, and it doesn't want to hold that density once you pull it out. And those of us who've been doing this pulling up, we've had experiences of hair loss. So this is the part I want to read you, okay? If this resonates with you, if not, don't always think it's the same thing. You have to be guided to things in your own way. So even if it's coming from me, it might not be for you, but it will be for those who feel called. And I've had a few people on my path who have been already asking me about hair loss. So the woman was saying she had her first falling out in bucketfuls in the fall of 2008, sorry. So she said what really brought this hair falling out business to home in a horrifying way was that the same cycle began again with the start of fall 2009. And she was mortified. I'm going to go just through it to the important parts. So when it started up again, exactly a year later, she thought, okay, it must be astrological. Then she went deeper and said, okay, it must be ascension related. So indeed, it was a needed confirmation she got, and was energy and ascension related, not strictly astrological. This is really real because sometimes there are transits, like when Saturn turns every 7 years, you have a Saturn initiation. You know, every 7 years your body will also shed, and that's why we say, okay, every 7 years you have this cellular renewal and your body sheds. But this is different. This hair loss can last much longer, and you still don't get answers. It's probably not that. So she says, think back to what was going on energetically in the fall months of 28. This was actually the start of my first awakening, my 2 years from 28 to 2010. Sorry. It was an extremely potent period for many of us who had intentionally remained below in lower vibrating, much more dark and dense energies for the sole purpose of trying to get any last minute stragglers on the Ascension train heading up and out of town. So she had, sorry, I have a nose itch. I had been living through this for many years prior, but by 2005, it was becoming increasingly physically, energetically, psychically, and in every other way painful being in any lower vibrating location. She talks about spiritual forums and when people are trying to pull you down and criticize and judge and blame this polarized world of third density. Whew. So we only wanted to share information, right? But then she says, remember the fall 2008 arrived, the energetic pressure of me and many of you having to stay down in those lower, slower, more dense levels and locations, including online reality, within the old overworld was nearly killing many of us. It was miserable, but after a few years, it became literally unbearable to stay behind, trying to help others via information and links and all that sharing. So the energetic and conscious gap between these two vibrating groups of people became so huge it could not continue. And so by December 2008, we were energetically released from remaining down in that lower vibrating darkness and painful, often attacking insanity any longer. So we energetically blasted our way back up to the surface and breathed in fresh air after nearly drowning down there. We were done with that aspect of trying to help other people existing at much lower frequency levels and waiting for them to make a choice. We were finally free to return to a matching vibrational energy level for us, and my God, it did feel good. So as soon as this happened, this is the important part, and I shot back up into a matching energy level in November 2008, that was when my hair started falling out. The next important Ascension energy transition happened with the mega energy changes in my shift shortly after this strike, right? So a huge group of us were once again profoundly done with waiting and holding open the exit door for any of the last minute stragglers who hadn't committed to getting on the Ascension train at that point. We could not and would not wait any longer because it was causing us tremendous continued pain and suffering to do so. Then the 999s of September happened. And then there was this fully split off from the old lower 3D world energetically. That was as well, especially for the first group, for the first wave, the older generation, The separation of worlds began then, and we spent the rest of the fall months and 2009 winter solstice adapting to those new and higher vibrating energies hitting us, our bodies, and anything else within us that was now vibrating slightly lower than our new higher frequency locations. So the fact that my hair fell out during both of these huge and highly important energy related ascension transitions makes sense, really. Then she quoted this, right? What occurs of how many percentages of vital life energy is used for that, and explains that, why she felt this. So she said there was little energy left, and then I already read you that part, right? So basically, it really depends what purpose you have chosen, what you're doing in your body. But for me specifically, they have shared that it was because so much of my energy went into building a new template. So I didn't always sustain myself, the physical level, because that level was more important. But now with this ascension, which means that light is now, because the platform has been created, is now ready to fully live its joy and happiness too. And I realized that because my inner self, or I would call it my divine child being created, was always saying, okay, we're just building this, we're just doing this, we're building the house, but when are we going to have fun in this house? When does the fun begin? When does the joy, the pleasure, the bliss begin? So obviously, as you can see with the first group, the first ascension wave, they had a lot to deal with humanity and their karmic release and their patterning, and they did the best they could. They couldn't save everyone. Save, if there is even such a thing. For me, as you know, it doesn't exist. But they were there as midwives, holding the light for as many as they could that were in between zones that could make that choice to move on in their ascension. And those of us who are more like second or third waves, some of us are like mixture of reading both, you know, the new kids and the antennas, which means that we're here to provide the solid foundation for the new reality. But they've actually, the first wave, they've, as you know, they cleared the way so that this dross was eliminated to the degree that it wasn't so difficult for, like, the seed doesn't hold if the soil, as you know, is not fruitable. It's not like soil is barren, or how do you say? So the conditions were, you know, needed to be created so there could be sustenance, so that when those of us who are planting these new templates, and I call it the seed of life, which is the life within this new template, so they could even have its firm grip. So even for us, even though this work first stage was already completed in a way, it wasn't easy because there was still a lot of question marks they're showing me now, and they're saying everything was like up in the air and nothing is ever solid. So you did your best, and because it was so much still left over, it was not all done, we also had to take the part. So let's say these souls said, we have enough, please, we've done enough, okay, the new kids will now take over. This is how it goes. No soul can do more than they can actually, you know, physically provide, you know, in their bodies. You will never get more responsibility than what you can actually handle. So like my group always says, okay, I know it's intense, but you won't go bald. And I do sometimes get afraid. I'm like, I will go bald because these are such physical things, you know, like you grow excess something, you know, there's certain ET races, they don't even have hair because it's become like irrelevant and they're part of the evolution. So they've kind of like created the bodies that are more optimally built in order to sustain life force, so that their life force also goes to higher creations. But for Earth, we've used a lot, you know, the earthly bodies are created, a lot of it was created, especially at the template where the souls, as in their evolutionary journey, where they were in their mature soul age, they were getting, you know, like this vanity, like, ooh, who am I? My body, getting acquainted with the body, right? The body, physical, luscious, sensuality, all this. This was important for the souls who are at that growth level. But where we are now, you know, we're still feeling that. We're still feeling the need for humanness, for the understanding, for the compassion. We are part of that because you can't just show up as a bald eagle and say, oh, you know, people will judge you. They'll say you must be sick. There must be something wrong with you. It's not always like this, as you know. So what they've shared with me is it's actually the body itself is strengthening, but because a part of that process, so much went into that template building temporarily. It was like maybe a seeming lack of growth in other departments that are more physical and more tangible in that way. So when the growth happens again, they said it will come from a new seed. That's why it takes a while, because usually when the physical hair falls out, a new one grows mostly right away, right? There's not a lot of lagging behind or in between time. But with this process, like I said, I have certain holes in my head in the back, like little tiny holes that feel really annoying. They said because this is, it's like, you know, when something is building up, but there hasn't yet been a thrust that pushes the energy forward into that new growth. So this is kind of like it is. So the new thrust comes from the creation that springs forth from the life quotient building, that eventually it's like, you build, and then the spring happens, right? There is no waterfall when you look at nature. If there's not enough of a quotient of water that actually has that pressure, that potentiality that moves, is it called in physics potential energy? I don't know what it's called. I think it's potential energy. So it changes with different elevations and, from moving from one to the other scenario. And what this means is that eventually there's a thrust, right? It happens and we get a waterfall, okay? We get a windfall, we get some kind of like growth surge. Whew, okay, this was a lot to share today, but it was really important, I felt, for those of you who feel this transformation, transition happening in your bodies. So it's very important now, they said, to be patient with our bodies, because this is not an overnight process. It's a long-term process. Your bodies require a lot of compassion. I might not be as active as I used to be in terms of my videos and whatever. I used to share like so many videos. Recently I had a session and this young person tells me, how do you get so many videos? It's so much. I can't believe it. I'm like, wait a minute, with all the energy work I did and all the videos and all my personal sessions and readings, it didn't leave like a lot of room for me, to be honest. And now they're telling me my body has to become my priority. It's not from that vanity kind of sense, the ego kind of thing, but in terms of really dedicating myself to this life force process, the way it functions through the body, so that wherever I go and wherever I am, I can just beam off that energy. I can just do the life force translation, which is difficult sometimes because, you're doing this work behind the scenes and no one would ever call it work. It's just between you and your light team. And it's very difficult to get support physically for that process. So you have to do other means, of being sustained in the physical. So that sometimes requires a lot of energy as well. So I'm still at the level of finding my own balance point. I hope you are as well. I hope you don't get freaked out by my hair. But yeah, I have to have a little humor left. Otherwise it'd be just like hitting a brick wall. There's no solution for this. But sometimes you might feel like, if there is no answer coming, there is no obvious answer. Sometimes you might get an answer, but it feels like, it's still not, it's a partial answer. It's not a full, complete answer. It means like your soul still wants to reveal more to you, but it will come when you're ready. So don't settle for advice from other people who think why something's happening to you. Search deeper, go deeper. When something will crystallize, you will know without a doubt, this is the process you're going through. This is what you're experiencing. And let me see the battery, because I'm recording without the battery today. And the last thing I want to mention is the veganism thing, because I mentioned it today. Today, I also saw this beautiful post from someone on Facebook, I think. I never turn on Facebook, but there it was. It was a very beautiful approach to veganism, because it was not like coming from a point of judgment. There's a lot of things happening now. In the summer months, I think we read an article how, I think it was in France, vegans were doing all these kind of things, like they were breaking the windows from butchers and things like that. And it was a lot of protests happening because people just had enough of violence and all that. But the post was very beautiful, and all of a sudden this woman writes, and she's like, for my own experience, I'm going to tell you, don't say this, this is how it is, because people need to eat meat and all that. I'm reading that, I'm like, whew, first of all, okay, I need to say something because of seeing that, because if I see something and it's a trigger, it means like, okay, there's something wanting to come through more compassionately, with more understanding. First of all, just because you had a personal experience with something, like I share with you, something for me, it might not be for all of you or at all, but I'm sharing it because it might be for someone, okay? So the same way as that person shared very much about veganism, being vegan, okay? It's hard for me to pronounce this in English. Sorry, it was my second language. And it's like, I didn't understand, okay, why do people always do that? Okay, people always make an assumption about the reality at large from their own experience. This is something we cannot do at all, because you have to understand, first of all, veganism and any other kind of whatever you put in your body, whatever way you live, is not just a preference that you have. It's basically the way your body is being sustained by the impulse of light or a lack of it, or being more in the shadow, and how much evolution you have experienced as a soul from the levels of light or the spheres of light, which means your body recognizes its own natural organic form of sustenance at the level where it is vibrationally at. So you cannot give this reference point because you eat meat and saying humans need to eat meat because when I was a raw vegan, that's what the person wrote, my body got sick. Yes, her body got sick definitely because she's still at a lower frequency level and she still has issues to work through and she still has to climb up vibrationally. So it doesn't now, you know, you can't just say all people now need to eat meat or vice versa, vegans saying all people, you know, need to be vegans. The thing is, it's a vibrational thing. So it's a natural thing. And yet it's not also just natural thing because as you know, there was a reptilian inception. There was literally a frequency a distortion within humans. It was a brain malfunction in a way. It wasn't really a malfunction. It was more like a limited broad, I don't know how to call it, bandwidth. Let's say bandwidth at which they could sustain themselves. So it was kind of like reinforced that this is the way they should live. They should eat meat and grains. You know, grains were given from the gods and all those stories, you know, from the Anunnaki and so forth. But the thing is that it also kept humans in this state of evolution that could not move forward. So when you're saying, oh, it's definitely so, we need to eat meat, and otherwise we get sick, you're constantly affirming that to your body. So your body, once it's introduced to, let's say, lighter forms of sustenance, it won't even recognize them as sustenance. So people get sick because they're literally not receiving what they require because there's a program in the body that says this is not food. So you can eat like the best, richest food that would someone at a higher level vibration. Some people are already drinking just juices or just, you know, and they're just juicing and they're looking great and healthy and radiant and even muscular. You know, there's vegans who are also athletes and sports people, because they've managed to hit the right bandwidth, okay? It resonates, this interlocking of the inner life sustenance and the additional prana that we receive from food. So you can't make such assumptions, but you have to know that even though you might say, okay, I still require meat because otherwise I don't survive because I have this program, it doesn't mean you don't, as a human, also hold the responsibility to shift, because eventually you will shift. Everything eventually evolves. So an evolution to a more compassionate, fifth density human is an evolution towards veganism. It's an obvious fact. And you don't get sick because vibrationally you become a match for that level of reality. So saying that this is the ultimate truth, yes, for your limited view of dimensional living, which means I'm a third density being. So you're saying humans need to eat meat. You keep affirming that you are a third dimensional or third density, being living in this dimension. And there is nothing else. So if that's okay for you, if that's fine for you, that's it. But if you want to move forward, if you want to continue to ascend and reach higher level of not just consciousness, but what consciousness can do in this physical body, then you will have to reach higher. So if, let's say, I will say to my body, oh, you don't get enough protein, so I won't grow hair, right? And I don't recognize, and I keep saying this to my body, that plant food is not food, so it won't recognize it. It won't even know how to digest it. So your inner vital life force energy functions primarily directed through your consciousness. So if there's a malfunctioning or a false program within your consciousness, which happen through a lot of these implants and even imprints in people, some of the implants were also physical, as you know that. Well, not as maybe as physical as we would know it, but they were more physical than we would imagine them to just be energetic blockages. So let's say these constantly send out signals for humans to remain at the same level. There's no evolution of that. So people who say, this is my truth, okay, say it. That's your truth. But don't ever pretend you're a guru in that sphere, especially if you don't encompass life as a multidimensional reality and you think your reality is the only reality there is. That's very self-centered. You know, I'm a vegan, but I don't live in a self-centered way. I understand that there are certain laws of frequency that people are just tuning to, and people who believe that you have to eat meat and they don't eat it, they get sick. You know, I don't wish those people to get sick, of course, but at the same time, I also, because I value all life and I'm compassionate to all living forms of expression of life, I also understand that there's animals, you know, who are also needing to be valued. And I'm always signing petitions, you know, Care to petitions. Just recently I donated to the welfare of the elephants, you know, because a lot of them is just like going extinct, and it's, you know, much is happening on our planet. But a lot of it is also because animals are simply stating, we're no longer going to play this game of duality with you humans, okay? So this person also wrote something like, oh, you know, There's not just this inhumane way of killing animals. You can also just put them to sleep. Oh, that's great. So if I want to murder a human being, right, I would say, okay, if I do it with the pills and not like strangle or stab you, then it's a nice kind of murder. So then I'm, forgiven. It's not about that, people. It's not like death is death, okay? Either way you do it, either way you cause it, if it's against free will. And then people say, no, no, it's not against free will because animals have contracts with humans to be eaten. And I go like, okay, obviously this person knows nothing about the laws of creation and soul dynamics in terms of soul evolution. This whole idea of animals having contracts to be eaten by humans is a very, very patriarchal, very indoctrinated belief, which kind of, it's like self-righteous. It kind of gives us the right because there's a contract, right? And a contract, again, is a different word of use than, let's say, an agreement. A contract is something that is just destined, it's fixed. So that's why that's not absolutely true. An agreement is something different. An agreement would be that if an animal at the soul level would recognize something is more beneficial, there's more benefit or potential of life to evolve, to explore, and it's from love, then it would somehow create that unfolding in a natural way. And this was happening in the indigenous tribes, in the way they lived and they sustained themselves when they didn't have enough to flourish in terms of plant life. Okay, there was sometimes harder or harsh conditions on the planet as well, especially during certain ice ages. So now with all the flourishing, with all the techniques, technology, all that we have, it's kind of stupid to keep on saying, well, this is just how it is and it's how we have to live, because you already know that so much of our environment is being polluted and ruined just because we're kind of like sustaining meat, right, for our own production, okay? And it's not being done in humane ways, and it's being done in excess. It's being constantly perpetuated, and it's being out of no more dignity for respect for life at all. It's just like random tick 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 tick. It's like totally desensitized world. It's almost robotic. So even if you've seen this documentary, or was it a video about what you're actually eating in McDonald's, I never go anywhere like that because I know who it belongs to, okay, which groups hold dominance over this brand, this company. So basically there was a video showing that what was inside there was not even chicken, it was something synthetic, because it showed through the fibers that were in it. So it was terrible. But anyway, what I'm saying here is that you have to understand it's all about vibrational frequency through the laws of evolution. And when souls had certain agreements, were not contracts, they had to be done from love. What we're doing now is no longer, the agreements are being respected or valued from the level of love, which is reciprocity. So then also the comment was, well, yeah, you don't go tell an animal to be a vegan, right? You go tell an animal, they eat themselves too, like they eat each other, they eat other animals. And it's like, oh my God, please compare that with human consciousness, okay? Whew, there is a very beautiful description in the book I've just shared with you, the Jeshua channelings, that the animals, when the human consciousness fell into this self-exploration and also exploitation in many ways because of the ego coming to the forefront, there was a lot of distortion. So animals, because they're so sensitive and they were connected to what's happening at the collective field of earth, they've also felt that. So they've also fallen into that cycle. But what's the difference with the animals is how Spirit is showing me. They're constantly charging life force into the planet. So even though they might eat another form of animal, they're still contributing to the collective of the ecosystem, but humans are not. So that's the difference. So we're taking, and there's a lack of reciprocity here. And it's no longer a commitment and agreement based on love. So that's the major issue. And people who are looking at these things from a very low point of view, like, oh, you get sick because you're getting malnourished, oh, you have to eat meat because humans it's just how it is, it's determined. These people don't look at all what the illusion is. They don't know what ascension is. They don't understand what it means to shift frequency from a certain denser levels and move up into higher levels. And there's a lot of people who are new age who would just say, oh, I just show up and I'm so energetic, I can change the vibration of my food. Well, you can't change the karmic cycle of what took place either way. You can change the vibration, yeah, with your thoughts, whatever, because you believe that. But this is not about that. These issues that are now planetary issues are much deeper. They go deeper into the heart of what's actually present and unfolding, that what you might consider. So I just ask you, at least take one step further to rethink these things. If you have a limited perspective in any of that, because there's people who do love animals, but they're still confused about this whole carnivore kind of thing versus the plant life sustenance for human beings. Just do more exploration, okay? Don't become fixed. Don't become influenced too much by these people who go into radical waves of expressing their truth, because it's just their temporary truth. That's all there is. And even that person might change their mind as they grow and evolve. It's how it is. So don't rush headstrong into anything. Be conscious of whatever process happening in your body. Understand it first. Seek higher understanding. That's how I showed you with the whole hair loss thing. People just say these are Ascension symptoms. Okay, yeah, but can you go deeper into what's actually happening? What's present? Why are these symptoms? Go deeper into the nature of the energy transformation, what's happening. So I'm trying to, through my videos, give you a higher perspective of the unfolding of these things. So if maybe your time comes and you're like, whoa, I heard that somewhere. Oh, maybe she was talking about it or someone else. It doesn't matter. But it's a grounded perspective, which does incorporate much more than it's just currently may be familiar or known to you in this moment. So I say my farewell now. It's in my glassy balcony, if I can even call it. It's such so small. But I will talk to you soon when I can. I will do more energy work this month, as I've shared in my Ascension update. This is an energy time, time of moving energy, so probably won't do as much videos as I usually do per month. So if you want to support my work, what I share, you can become my patron for $5 or more per month. You will get Ascension guidance, channel spirit message, kind of long, and it's there waiting for you on my Patreon page. You can also get donations any way possible, but most of all, I support people. I encourage people to support, through getting the courses, because you're not just, just contributing, but you're also getting more knowledge and wisdom back. This is always my main intention, okay? So take care of yourselves, please, wherever you are. Be well, be safe. You are loved, you're nurtured. Support yourself as well, in whatever way, but best way you can in each moment. I love you.